If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend, new Gundy Award winner, by the way, Keith Graves from Christian Warrior Training. Congratulations, Keith.
Thank you.
And our friends Stan and Kent from CCW Safe. Y'all may recognize Kent. We've had him on before the president, but Stan, you haven't been on our show.
I haven't.
Maybe I don't want to do you any disservices, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
So, hey guys, I'm Stan Campbell. I'm co-founder and COO of CCW Safe. Former law enforcement officer, did 20 years for Oklahoma City Police Department. Actually, CCW Safe is kind of based on a police model of how officers get resources and the same response. We set it up similar for you guys when you're involved in self-defense shootings.
That's awesome. Kent?
Yeah, I'm the president of CCW Safe for the last 4.5 years, and really been working with Stan and the founders to build the business, refine the process, and really just stay focused on our mission, which is helping people who get involved in a self-defense incident in the aftermath of that.
That's awesome. I appreciate it, guys. So again, tonight's topic is going to be avoiding problems in, communist areas, blue cities, peaceful protests, Antifa, the whole 9 yards. So I got to go to Keith first, because Keith has deployed some very unique strategies over the years for this. Keith, tell the stories of when you dressed up as Antifa.
So I worked undercover narcotics, and we would often go to Oakland and other places, and they would be out of control. And one of the things you do is you send undercovers out to go get a feel for it. Well, if you want to blend in, you dress like them.
That's right.
Right. And so I mean, it works great. I mean, you just go, hey, comrade. You walk by, they're like, hey, right, whatever. And then once you got a laser pointer, and then it's like everything's going on, you point to the guy you want everybody to get. Yeah. You just, that guy right there, go grab him. They yank him out of the crowd. But I think like now, like you should really be thinking too, like with all the stuff going on, you can get caught in a protest. Usually they're just a couple of blocks, but if you're stuck there, you should have a change of clothes that help you blend in. Well, because you can see them. Like recently there was a guy where he was wearing camouflage and they're beating the crap out of him, and he's yelling, "I'm one of you." And then somebody came up and was like, "No, he's one of us." And they're like, "Oh, sorry." Right. And so if you're dressed like I'm wearing a Christian cross right now, I mean, they're going to come after me. Right. So you need to have a change of clothes in your pack that you can dress like gray man style, or you could throw on a black mask with a black jacket over everything and blend in, yell out, "Yeah, go comrades," as you're going the other way to get out before the police pull them,
Yeah, good advice. Stan, I'd like to hear your advice if somebody finds themselves on the X by surprise. So in other words, they didn't have the opportunity to see it in advance and avoid it. Yeah. And all of a sudden it erupts. What are the best practices for just your everyday ordinary citizen?
Well, I mean, just like, being in a situation, a huge crowd, you have to actually think about, number one, staying calm. So you got to stay calm. And when you have something violence flash in front of you, you need to like really scan quickly for a place, to exit. It's going to be really important not to go against the crowd, because you'll be dealing with you will never get through. You want to go with the crowd a little bit and start angling out toward the edge so that you can find your way to escape out of that situation. But mainly, especially if you have like family with you and you happen upon this, if it's you and your wife and you got a couple of kids, make sure the husband gets in front, you start a chain and you hold the kids in between and mom is last, and you make sure that you guys stay together so you don't get separated.
Good advice for sure. Ken, I'm curious what your thoughts are when somebody, let's say, goes to the next level. They're on the X. Now somebody is throwing fists, whatever, and they have to defend themselves, whether they have their family or not with them. Obviously, there's not a lot of time for people to think through, well, I should do X, Y, or Z, but what should they mentally prepare for in their mind so that they don't end up, shooting themselves in the foot from a legal perspective, from a defense perspective?
Sure. Yeah, and I think that is something, probably to Keith's point, just like where you're going to prepare and bring clothing or outfits, these are things you need to sort of prepare for mentally on how you're going to react, and reminding yourself when you're training what the basic core principles of self-defense are, the legal standards for those things, right? Fear of severe bodily injury or death, places where you cannot withdraw, proportional responses, all of those things are going to come up in the process, right? Where if people are throwing fists and you decide to use a firearm and shoot 6 people, that's going to be right. That could be a legal problem. I mean, it makes you chuckle, but in that panic moment, it's something that you need to have rehearsed in your mind, so as best you can in the moment, right?
Real quick on your point, I've seen comments on after this protest at the church in St. Paul. I had a lot of comments after my live that I did for that, where people are like, I think if they did that, I think we'd be okay to shoot them. No, no, you're not. And it's because they're not thinking clearly, right? And you can't go into a crowd control incident and think you're going to shoot your way out of it. It's just
Absolutely. You got to think about the backdrop with people behind there, the innocent that could be, injured, as well. So
Stan, maybe, I know you're not an attorney. None of us are attorneys. We are not giving you legal advice. But Stan, if somebody draw a distinction between being in a stand your ground state like Florida or Texas versus a non-stand your ground state, as far as the latitude that the stand your ground states provide.
So you really have to think about it, of course, legally, I mean, you are protected. I mean, it states pretty much that you in the stand your ground state, it's not really required for you to leave.
No duty to retreat.
Yeah, you have no duty to retreat. Okay. In the simple terms, you have to truly understand that although that is the key issue there, psychologically, you still have to be ready to de-escalate and even avoid as well. Although you're in this state, it might not be smart for you to stand your ground. Okay, you have nowhere to go, nowhere to retreat. That's something. But like we just talked about, if you're in a situation where your life is not in danger, but you're just scared, and that's a lot of things we deal with our members. It's like they believe just because they're scared, they can pull their gun out and shoot. And then, and in saying that, you have to just know that, how do I get out of this situation? First, always think about, I have the firearm. If someone's not approaching you with a weapon and it's just fist, you understand that you might get hurt. And also to that point, it's really important for all you guys to know that you should really get some type of physical training and you should know how to fight and not just depend on the gun. It was notorious when we teach police officers. I was an instructor for Oklahoma City Police Department for one of the head lead instructors for 15 years. And, it's amazing how many new candidates, never been involved in a fight, never been punched in the face. To know that, someone's going to hit you and you might get hurt. That may be one thing, but it might not be the shooting incident.
That's interesting. So just because we don't have the full studio set up here, pardon me, folks, I can't read anything that you're saying, but I'm going to take the audio and max it out on our microphone. So hopefully anybody who's having any difficulty hearing that will address it. Keith, and then I want to come right back to you, Stan, to speak to the next part, which is buying time by interrupting somebody's OODA loop. So observe, orient, decide, act. So a really great example is my friend Tony Blower. He got rear-ended. He lives in LA. He got rear-ended at a stoplight, which pushed his car into the car in front of him. He gets out of his car. This guy gets out of the driver's seat, who's, a mountain of a man. Tony's like my size. And 2 passengers get out. And the guy walks up, looks at his bumper, looks at Tony and says, I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
And Tony's like, whoa, 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 time out. There's 3 reasons I can't fight you. The guy stopped to listen to the 3 reasons. Tony sucker punched him, knocked him out cold. The other 2 got back in the car, and away he went. But I'd like to hear from both of you as, you know, former law enforcement officers, ideas on just buying time, creating space to either defend yourself or to get away.
Honestly, like what Tony explained in that one, I kind of do the same thing. Like people will, you know, they'll come and they're like, you know, I'm going to beat you. And like, well, here's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to try to beat me and I'm going to beat you back. You touch me, I touch you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to both go to the hospital, but you're going to be in the lead ambulance. And I'm like, you know, I'll do stuff like that. Like, and it's showing like a willing, like, oh, I know I'm going to get a little punished in this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be punishing back. And I noticed like for me, that like doing, like explaining to people like, this is how it's played out, because we already know. Like we've been through so many fights and so many instances. I just play it out. Like here, like I remember a guy wanted, he was trying to do a suicide by cop and he had a knife and he's like, kill me. And I'm like, bro, stop, hold on. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to shoot you in the pelvis. And he kind of like shot, like, wait, what? I'm like, bro, I'm going to shoot you in the pelvis. Yeah. You're going to be shitting in a bag for the rest of your eternity. And I'm like, and it's going to get way worse. I'm like, can we talk about this? And he's like, yeah. And that was all I needed, right? But it was like the truth. I mean, in my mind, I was like, well, I'm going to shoot him in the pelvis. I don't want to kill him.
Yeah.
Right. And like, don't be a coward here. And like, yeah, I'm going to shoot you in the pelvis. You're not going to be able to come forward and stab me now. You know, because I shot your pelvic girdle, but I'm probably going to tear out all your intestines to go with it. So like, there's consequences here, you know, and I ended up talking to him like that and he let it go. Right. Not that that's going to work every time.
Yeah.
Right. You know, but I like what Tony Blauer, you know, he's like, oh, I'll give you 3 reasons. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, you know, in my mind, I was like, we mean 3 reasons. Oh, I get it. You're buying time to hit him. You know, for me, I've always just explained like, this is what I'm going to do to you.
Well, Stan, let me,
just that thought right there.
Go ahead. Go with that.
So, you know, like, you know, Keith's talking about, you know, I think about, you know, as cops, you know, we could have had a million physical altercations, but we talk people into the car.
Yeah.
And, you know, it goes along with, you know, experience and training, you know, being able to stay calm and start thinking that through, you know, like with Tony, like, the 3 things, and that takes a lot. I mean, you got to be really,
think about
you know, understanding that I'm more intelligent than this person. Number one, I'm better trained than this person, and I'm smart. I'm smart enough to, you know, be able to calm you down by putting something on your head, you know. But like for citizens, I like to keep it simple, and it's because you don't have to remember too much. Now we're different; we can go through that and like really talk them down. But one of the things I like to do and tell, you know, our people from CCW, our members, is that if someone is in you and you are afraid, you know, or even to say something like that. Number one, if they say they're about to kick your ass, you know, if they didn't do it immediately, that means there's a chance to get out of it. That's number one. Because like a true predator is going to hit you, right? Yeah. And it doesn't go with the attack. So, you know, if they're just talking, they give you a threat. The threat means that I can get out of this. Yeah. So you immediately go, okay, what do I say to do that? Well, I like to tell people to just say, you know, look beyond you, like, officer, can you come over here, right? Just enough to make them think that there's a policeman there. They turn, and then now you have your avenue of escape. Wow. So something really simple.
That's good.
Yeah, that does work. I've yelled out, like, I've told, like, as a cop, I've told people, like, hey, can you go grab your canine? And the officer looks at me like, what? And I'm like, hey, get your canine, so we just bite him, get him over with. And like, we don't have a canine, right? You know, like, you know, there's this guys like will bark, you know, like they'll bark because they sound like a dog. I mean, I mean, like, just side note, as you're talking about, you know, you're obviously very experienced, you know, street cop. Like, how many people could you have shot over your career but didn't?
Like literally 10.
Yeah, I mean, they're
finger on the trigger, but I gave them one. I mean, God didn't make it their day.
Wow, exactly.
And that's really it, you know. So like, I'm calm enough because I was also SWAT for 10 years. Calm enough, you know, to be able to, you know, like really say, look me in my eyes, like I'm not playing with you. I'm going to take your life if you don't do this. Drop the weapon, right? Yeah. And then they know you're not playing. They know you're not scared. It's like, I don't want to do it, but I will do it.
And, you know, and the other thing is, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
And like, certainly like I ask cops this all the time, that question. And we could have killed so many people, but we don't. And we don't because we're moral, right? We don't want to do that. And you shouldn't want to. You're a psychopath if you want to, right? But it doesn't mean don't don't use force when you have to, but there are a lot of times that you can still talk your way out of it. You know, you can do all these tricks that we're telling you, which is experiential for us.
Yes.
And you'll find, I mean, like most of the time, you don't have to use deadly force.
So I want to come back to both you and Stan on the topic of stress inoculation. But before that, I want to come back to disparity of force, which you touched on, Kent. So paint a picture for me here. Let me paint a picture for you. So you have somebody who's carrying a firearm, and there's somebody threatening them with a knife. So on the surface, it seems like there's a disparity of, force, right? As the old saying goes, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, sort of thing. But every single cop I've ever met, street cop, like you say, Keith, has said if they had a choice between being shot or stabbed, every last one of them's been shoot me, don't stab me.
100%.
Yeah. How does that play out from a legal perspective in your experience, not being an attorney?
With our members, we do see that, right? And this is not the correct use of the legal term, but a knife, to your point, is just as deadly as a firearm, right? And so the standard is not for you to be able to assess all that to a T, right? It's like if they have a stick versus a knife, that's a different thing, right? And that level is different. So I think it's just a matter of degrees, right? And so for most people, that firearm is going to be the good answer, particularly if the person is good with the knife, if they're aggressive with the knife, if they're standing 10 feet away with the knife, that's a different story. And so, how real and imminent is the threat? How aggressive are they? And then, another thing that touches on all that is, do we have witnesses? Right. And if you're with a group, can you, people in your group, identify witnesses after the fact to testify to how aggressive the person was? Because that solves a lot of that disparity too, where you're not relying on a jury to say, that doesn't sound that scary. But you have somebody who can vouch for your story and tell that narrative where it's like, oh no, like this dude is about to get his neck sliced.
So let's stay with this, Stan, and we'll go into stress inoculation. But when I transferred my Texas permit to Florida years ago, it was a 31-year active duty detective from Port Orange Police. Okay. And he asked everybody who was taking the workshop, he said, how close would you let somebody get that had a knife before you shot them? And this is shortly after we got stand your ground in 2006 in Florida. And so he pulled a good portion of the room, and a lot of people said, arm's length, 5 feet, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, well, he said the 21-foot rule is not an exact science, but generally speaking, if somebody's inside 21 feet running at you with a knife, even if you shoot them, you're probably still going to get stabbed.
That's correct.
And if you get stabbed once, it was something like a 50% chance of survival. 2 or more times, it drops to like a 5% chance of survival. Speak to that particular scenario from a stress inoculation standpoint, where somebody doesn't have to stop and think, oh, wait a minute, I took this workshop and I'm supposed to do this, that, and the other thing. But they actually do it. Kind of like a linebacker who's seen the same play 100 times, doesn't stop and think.
So, of course, distance matters. I mean, we just talked about that. Like one of the things that you might think about doing and just always have on your mind, like if you see a knife, like immediately, because a lot of people will just pause or just stop and freeze, right? But always think about knife means immediately move to the side, because every time even someone's running at you, your movement matters. They have to readjust every time you move. So if you see a knife, immediately just do a side step, right? And just be in the practice of doing that. So that means you're getting off the line of the attack. That's number one. Number two, know that if don't backpedal at all. If you backpedal, we talk about, you don't know what's behind you. Even if you're trying to draw while you're going backwards, too easy to fall. So that's what I say. Always step to the side, try to clear and then get yourself different, change the angle. So that's really the most important thing to do. When, we talk to even family and such, we talk about, how do you prepare for this? Like you have to still think about, if you don't prepare mentally first, right? Or even talk about it, where we sit around and have, table time where it's okay, here's a scenario, what would you do? And then you fix that with your family, you make sure they have a plan and that they practice that. Backing up, I even go as far as, because, we talk to our members about calling 911, right? When you're down there and you're at the range and you're shooting, especially indoor range, it's easier to do. You know, as you're changing out your mags, mouthing out, I'm calling 911. I just been involved in an incident. I had to save my life, blah, blah, blah. And this is while you're putting in your rounds. And so you practice that. It's practicing the speech, yes, but it's getting you in the habit of knowing what to do after you actually pull the trigger.
So, you know what just struck me of what you were saying as far as somebody coming at you with a knife? I know 3 guys who were snipers in the military, and last one of them told me that if you were to ever encounter a sniper, you never move forwards, you never move backwards, you always move laterally because it makes it a lot harder shot.
Yeah.
So
can I jump on?
yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So in the Christian Warrior training, we have a qualification course that we want you to do if you're carrying armed at a church. In that qualification course, one of the things we have you do is sidestep, getting off the X. And on that, it says get off the X. And you sidestep, take your shot. And we're doing that because we want them to start ingraining in their head to get off the X. Well, when I first learned that, when that first became a thing and it was brought to law enforcement, I was on SWAT, we were doing a raid. I'm going through and a guy comes around the corner and he took me by surprise, but I was a little distance back, but he came around, it took me by surprise. I sidestepped because it was supposed to be bad guys and he wasn't armed. But I remember when I sidestepped, he looked for a minute. He was like looking around like, wait, where'd he go? And I was like thinking in my mind, I was like, damn, that worked. But it's like because they have tunnel vision too.
That's right.
And so if you've never had it, you can get out of it if you realize it. But bad guys get tunnel vision too. And you literally are looking through through a tunnel and you don't see anything in your peripheral. And for him, that's what happened. And I realized, and I clobbered him. Took him into custody. Use that force necessary to effect the arrest. It took him into custody, but it was hilarious in my mind. I kind of chuckled a little bit. I'm like, wow, it works, right? And that was the only time I ever really got to use something like that. But you're spot on, brother. Like we need to train, like you should take that Christian Warrior firearms drill and take that. And if you run through it, it teaches you all the drills that you need to do to be safe, like getting off the X, moving forward, all that kind of stuff. So
it's good advice. So Ken, I want to come back to you because you were the first one to mention calling 911. So back to that Port Orange detective, he said to us, look, if you're unfortunate enough to be in a citizen involved shooting, when you call 911, don't say I shot somebody, say somebody's been shot. And then he said, I need you to send 2 ambulances because you're having chest pains. And so when the ambulances show up, you get whisked away. You have time to call your self-defense provider like CCW Safe before you say something, put your foot in your mouth. I'm just curious for your thoughts on that strategy because it's been burned into my mind.
We've heard a lot of that. And then we have retired homicide investigators on staff, and people can go on the site and see their videos about how to handle that conversation when the police show up. And it's a slightly different approach. Neither one is wrong, right? And their advice is, hey, either on the 911 call or when the officers are actually present, it's like, I was involved in this incident. I got attacked. I was going to die. I defended myself. I'm going to cooperate with you completely, but I am going to wait till I have my attorney.
Correct.
But so you give them the basics, you set up your self-defense claim, and you ready to cooperate, getting combative, getting, defensive with them, that does not end well. You're really, and these guys can attest to it, right? If you can get them where they now feel like they're helping you and working for you because they don't show up with that mindset, right? They're there to figure out what happened and who did what. They don't automatically assume that what you said is true. So cooperative, be clear that you are defending yourself. I'm going to do everything you want to do. I just need to talk to my attorney. And that's a very simple strategy.
So I think a little bit differently. I was taught by an attorney that just represents cops in shootings, and he's been very successful. He's really cool. Said the same thing, you have heart problems. And the reason being is when you go to the hospital, they're going to give you a couple of drugs that make it very difficult for you to give a statement. Now it's different law enforcement versus civilian, for sure, right? But in law enforcement, we're required to give certain information, like I fired 4 rounds, they were in this direction, there's no outstanding suspects, and then you say, I like to talk to my attorney.
Yeah.
You know, and assert my Fifth Amendment right. I personally think citizens should be like, hey, I'd love to talk to you, but I'm going to wait till my attorney gets here.
Yeah.
That's it. I would end it at that. I wouldn't even give any more info, because like some guys, when you give an inch, they're going to take a mile. They're going to keep, and the other thing is you're a good person. You're not some dirtbag. And you also know that what you did was right. And you want to tell everybody how right you are.
Oh.
And I cannot tell you how much, with the stress of the moment, how you're going to feel compelled because of your upbringing. The police are good, which they are. Police are good.
Yeah.
You know, that, you know, I want to try and help you clear my name.
Yeah.
Man, it depends. Certain jurisdiction, like jurisdiction I came from, I have Oakland and Berkeley, you know, and the DA there prosecute cops all the time for, not all the time, but they prosecuted a couple cops for murder and for righteous self-defense. And I can only imagine what they're going to do to a citizen. And I think it's best just keep your mouth shut till a lawyer gets there and let the witnesses speak for you.
Yeah.
Right. Because there hopefully will be witnesses there.
So, you know, and I'm like somewhere in the middle, but, you know, what we do, you know, because we both been cops and we know how that is. But, you know, like I'm like you, I like the thought of, I mean, I still state, I tell our members, ask for medical, you know, ask for I want the police and medical, right? No matter how many ambulances you ask for, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, they're still going to take you away if you say that you're having issues when they get there. But, you know, because a lot of stuff is hard to remember. But even when you think about how you're going to be painted later, like in that world, in our world, you know, when they're trying to say that you're the aggressor and, you know, they check your social media to see if you have any posts saying, I want to kill people, blah, blah. They want to paint you as the bad guy. So you have to think about that in always, you know, preparing yourself even before you get out there and get involved in the incident, you know, kind of what you're going to do, what's going to happen. And when you do go to court, and they see that you shot someone and then you ask for an ambulance, it's going to look good, you know, in your favor to make it look like, okay, really, if I was somebody just looking to gun someone down and take a life, would I call an ambulance for them? So no matter what you do, when you're on 911, make sure you do that. Make sure you ask for an ambulance. The second thing about, you know, what should I say? I'm like, you know, with our homicide guys that work for us, and you know, when we understand, you know, we've been through so many, you know, officer-involved shootings that we've had to either work or supervise or been involved in. You know, you have to think about, you have been through the most stressful, traumatic thing in your life. It's not natural to take a life, right? It's not natural to even put a bullet in someone. And when that happens, you know, you're overwhelmed with all the physical things that you have memory gaps and all this stuff. You don't want to give a partial story. The problem with the story you give that 911 guy, the officer that is getting there to gather stuff, no matter if he's coming up high five and saying good job or whatever you give is being recorded. And you give a half story. When the story changes later, after you had those 2 days just to relax and really remember everything, when you present it later, it looks like now you're lying because you didn't give that story when you changed the story. So you don't want to give the story. You give just that simple thing, say, I do want to cooperate in front of my attorney, you know, and then don't say another word about the incident, because like he said, you're going to feel compelled because you know that you're the good guy, right? I'm a little skittish on what a witness might say, because the problem with witnesses, if you don't know that right now, you know, that I saw Chris looking at the incident, Chris might have heard the first shot, right? When you shot him in the chest, right? And then he goes to turn around, but the person's body naturally turns around. And then Chris sees the second shot, which goes in the side, and the third goes in the back, all in that split second. And so then Chris comes up and says, I saw the guy shoot him in the back, right? So you got to be, you know, mindful of what to do, you know, and like we have our folks, there's a 10-step thing that we do. What do you do after shooting, right? And we kind of lay it out, you know, when after you're safe, these are some of the things that you need to do, right? But you need to understand that you are your first defender of your shooting, right? Not that lawyer. You are. So everything you do at that time can be used against you. And I'm talking about action and inaction.
And so if you're real quick, you may witness something, you may be, let's say you're not the shooter, but you witness somebody else shoot somebody. You want to be a good witness.
That's right.
I'll give you an example. I had a critical incident. I used force on somebody that I was going to need to get a lawyer. And in that incident, there was a statement from a lady, and she was like, I was so scared the officer was going to die. I'm shocked that he didn't use more force at an earlier point. And I'm reading these key points now. I went to the detective. I'm like, bro, is this a cop? Right? And he's like, it's a cop's wife. Right? And I was like, she knew exactly what to say, right? Yeah. And she wasn't lying, but she was like doing the keywords. I thought he was going to die. And I remember I witnessed a Stockton cop giving force. And I helped him get the guy into custody. And his sergeant rolled up, and I'm like, hey, let me give your sergeant a statement. And he's like, and I'm like, Sarge, can't believe that officer didn't shoot him. He's so controlled. Like that guy, you should give him an award for being controlled. That's you know, and I went through this whole thing because, I mean, he whooped on with a baton. It was good, and it was righteous. But I made sure I gave those points of like, man, I'm shocked he didn't shoot him. You know, like this was so bad. I thought the officer was going to die. This is why I'm off duty and I intervened, you know, and you're playing it up a little bit. You're not lying, but you're playing it up to, you know, be a good witness for that person.
And then before you step in, Chris, and the last point to that is like teach your family. Like if I'm involved in the shooting, let them know what to say, right? So let them know that, hey, you know, don't speak too much. Don't give the officers the full story, especially if they didn't see it all. So, you know, you got to train your family and you got to train yourself.
And you don't have to worry so much about, I think most of the cops, like they're, you know, I can't talk about that. All right, so there are. Sorry, there's.
Don't tell too much truth.
No. I mean, like I'm thinking of a current case. I can't talk about it. But there are cases where the cops come up and go, "This is clearly self-defense."
That's right.
And it's a homicide. But if you shoot somebody, even in self-defense, it's a homicide. And they just go, "Homicide." Like, yeah, dirtbag got what he was coming to him. And they literally write like a page and a half homicide report. Like, you know, guy tried to rob him, he blasted him, 10-8, you know, we're done. And then the prosecutor charges him for murder.
Yeah.
Right.
And to Keith's point, and that's a great point, because like the officer who's the 911 guy, that's not the guy that's going to truly, you know, the detectives are the one, the guys in the suits are the one you got to worry about. Yeah. So the guy that says, you know, like we about to get off work, I don't really care. I'm going to write this up real quick. High five, you did a good job. You know, you should have shot him. It's clearly self-defense. Just because don't let your guard down and don't feel compelled to give him the story because he just became your friend. And I'm not saying that he's going to try to use anything against you. It's just that you may feel compelled to say, okay, this guy said self-defense. But let me tell you what happened. No, you don't do that. You protect your story because you want to have the full story. And we do that often. We hire attorneys to, you know, contact the homicide guys and set up time for the interview. You know, as long as you have an attorney present in the mix, then you have some controls, and that's what it's about.
Yeah. I got T-boned in a wreck that was not my fault. I've been hit multiple accidents, not my fault. But anyway, until my attorney got involved, we didn't know that the key witness who was at a convenience store supposedly watching the whole thing unfold was related to the person who hit me.
Wow.
And they and basically painted it like it was my fault, and it wasn't. But I want to hear from all three of you on something in particular. I'm just curious what your opinion would be. Average police response time, 8+ minutes. Safe to say?
It depends on where you live. 3 to, I've seen 11, I've seen 30. I mean, it depends. You're in a rural area, 30 minutes or more.
Okay.
If you're in a like an urban city, it could be like 3 to 5.
Okay, so let's roll with 3 to 5 minutes. So you're in this citizen-involved shooting. You had to shoot the bad guy, but there's still other people there. You don't know what their, you know, relationship is to the person that you shot. What's the SOP? What's the standard operating procedure for a private citizen as far as what they do while they're waiting for the cops to arrive? What do they do with their firearm? Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, so I'm going to defer to their expertise, but I'll tell you an anecdote from an actual member.
Okay.
So it was a guy in LA on his way home from the gym after his workout. Such a nice guy. I mean, just real story. He had a new box of cereal at home. He's like, I got to get some milk on the way home so I can eat this cereal. He stops at a 7-Eleven. He knew it was a bad area. He's like, I'm just going to run in and get this and run out. There was some teenagers in the store. So he's like, I'm just going to sit in the car until this group comes out of there. I don't like the look of this. Another car pulls up. Dude opens his door into the side of the member's car really hard. He rolls down the window, says, hey, take it easy over there. And the guy's like, does it again. And he's like, you know, I'm going to get a gun out of the glove box and shoot you. How will that feel? And he goes, I rolled up the windows and I just kept to myself. Anyway, so to speed up the story, there was 2 people in that car. He gets out of the car eventually to go in the store. The guy who had been opening his door comes around from the front. The other was a female. She came from behind. He turns to look at her, and this guy wails him in the side of the head, totally knocks him down. He falls to the ground immediately. He was wearing gym clothes, but he was carrying. The gun popped out. The aggressor came off the curb towards the gun. Our guy was able to roll over and get it, roll back over, and he shot the guy a few times. And he had been watching all of our videos. He said, I binged on all of your content. And he said, you know, I tried to tend to this guy. The girl was back here. She was on the cell phone. And it was, then I start recalling what to do. So he said, the front of that store had a corner with brick walls. And he said, so I get myself in that corner so I can see what's in front of me. The guy's on the ground. Nothing can come up behind me. He says, I'm on the phone with 911. And she's on the phone calling the guy's friends saying, get over here.
Some backup.
This dude capped Joey or whatever the guy's name was. Get over here and we're going to cap this dude. And he's like, please get here fast.
Wow.
Please get here before. And then the rest of it is, so now he knows because the police are coming and the other people bad guys have not showed up. He had described on the 911 call what he was wearing so he could be identified.
That's right.
When the police car came in, he put the firearm on the sidewalk in front of him. He went down on the ground, already waiting for them. So that was really a good way to deal with that situation. You know, getting that place of protection, having a protocol for how to deal with the police and be ready because they don't know you're in LA. Somebody's been shot.
Yep.
You're the guy with the gun, right? Imagine that. So that's just an anecdote from a real member that turned out really well.
Amazing presence of mind, though. So
He's a former Marine, and you know, very disciplined guy. And we've had other members who haven't done any of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's just more difficult. But now they can give you.
But like what Kent's saying, like the most important thing I know Keith says too is protect your back, right?
Yeah.
So or find something like to put your back against, right? You know, but leave yourself an avenue to escape too, because you don't know how friendly these people are, or if they're with them, or whatever the case may be. You want to be able to visually scan. You know, I know people practice, you know, shoot and look around. Yes, that's great, but make sure that you take care of your back and make sure nobody's coming up from behind you. Tell everybody else, use your verbal commands. Tell everybody stay back, right? A lot of people always forget about using their mouth, right? Because that's number one in de-escalating something, is using verbal commands, no matter who you are. Tell them, stay back, get back. I'm not going to hurt nobody. I called 911 already, even if you didn't. Tell them I'll call 911 already. Keep everybody back. The police will be here in a minute. All those things just to make everybody stay where they are. And that's so you can see them and you protect yourself, right? So important.
Yeah, so I think everything is situationally dependent. You know, like with your guy, he's in a bad neighborhood. You got bad people coming. Yeah, man, he did the appropriate thing. I think I think a lot of self-defense shootings, it's you and another person. And I think if you're able to safely, I would give that person aid because you do you do have a duty to not just, I don't want to say you have a duty, but you know, I'm obviously a Christian.
I was going to say morality,
right? We're not savages, right? And number one, you should do it just because that's what good moral people do. But number two, it looks good when you go to court, right? Because you obviously didn't want to kill the guy. You're giving him aid, trying to give him first aid. But if you can't do that because of like your guy's situation, I would definitely not in that situation.
Well, he actually did. He actually went to the guy and was like, be still. I called for an ambulance. And then of course he's hearing that other conversation.
I think everything was situationally dependent. I mean, I was watching one, it was in Washington, a guy had murdered his wife, and a CCW guy shot the suspect, and everybody just kind of stood there. And I'm watching the video going like, somebody give him aid. Like, you have friendlies all over the place, you know, and I know he killed his wife, but like, you kind of have we've lost our society if you just decide like, oh, screw that guy, he gets to die. You know, like that's what they do in Iraq or Afghanistan. We don't do that here.
Yeah, and just to add on what Kent was saying about that, remember, the only thing that would have changed, you know, versus what he did was, when the officers got there and he put that gun down in front of him, I would not suggest laying down where the gun is, right? No, I'm saying that's what the member did. Like, you raise your hands, you've already given out, you know, who you were and what you're wearing, you let them know you're a good guy. The problem with 911 is that information is going to the dispatcher. It's her duty or his duty to give the responding officers the right information. Sometimes it doesn't come on time,
Yeah.
right? So all they know has been the shooting. So Keith and I arrive, and all we see is a guy with a gun. And you know you're a good guy. You want to make sure you put that down so that he says, okay, I can't hurt you, because officers are all taught that the hands is what's going to hurt you. So you show your palms immediately. Go.
Yeah. So this is the point I always like to bring up. Willie Wilkins, a detective from Brooklyn Police Department. He was on my county drug task force, and he was shot by one of his own guys. And he was taking when you're in narcotics, we don't take enforcement action, but he heard them chasing a carjacking suspect that was armed. He saw the guy, took him out at gunpoint, and was thinking, like, everybody knows me. I mean, everybody knows Willie, except for the two new guys that just started. They jump over the fence and they blast him because he matched the description.
Yeah.
He's holding a gun and got a guy at gunpoint, right? And the cops, one of them goes to my church. They did nothing wrong. Nobody did anything wrong, right? But to your point, when the cops roll up, they have no idea what's going on, right? And you're standing there with a gun. I mean, so many bad things can happen. And if we accidentally shoot each other, what do you think is going to happen to you? Right? I like bringing that incident up because, like, Willie was a good dude.
Yeah.
It was a horrible incident. But to your point, about that having that gun when the cops roll in, man, they're coming in hot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and even where the member did try to render aid to that guy, at least just get him settled down. There is good morality in that. And then furthermore, his incident ended up about 2.5 weeks later. We got a written no file from the prosecutor. Our member had the detective's phone number, and he was calling the detective like once a week saying, "Is that guy lying? How is he? What's?" And finally, I think after 3 or 4 weeks of those calls, the detective told him, "Hey man, you don't have to worry about him. Like, you don't have to check on this guy." He's like, "I shot this guy. I want to know that he's going to be okay." Wow. And the guy did end up recovering. But, back to the mental part of that. I mean, he was struggling immediately for that first month of, did I kill somebody?
Yeah.
Or not? And thankfully he didn't.
I've seen cops struggle over shooting people that had died. And the rest of us are like, dude, he was a criminal, man. Like, he killed people. Like, good job. Like, you're not supposed to do that. But you see, like, I mean, it's horrible. Taking another life, it doesn't matter if the guy was a criminal.
Yeah.
I mean, like, look at people in war. We had a guy that landed a 2,000-pound bomb on 100 Taliban.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to him later. He's like, this stuff, man, I'm having a hard time with it. And I was like, yeah, they're Taliban. Like, dude. He's like, I know, I killed 100 people. And I'm like, help kill 100 people, right? And I was like, man, I can't argue with that, right? Like, we're not meant to kill each other.
No.
Yeah. Well, Grady Judd might disagree with you.
I love Grady Judd.
Grady is.
You know what? Hold on, Grady Judd. I travel the country teaching cops, and I had some Polk County deputies in there. It's funny, there was that deputy in Wisconsin, the sheriff, the African American dude that was wore the cowboy hat.
Yes.
I can't remember his name. When you would talk to his deputies and be like, "Hey man, how's your sheriff? He looks like cool, hella cool." And they're like, "I don't know, man. He's never around." And that's it. And I'm like, "Oh, he sucks, right? He's not good. He's not a good guy, right?" But then Grady Judd, I was like, "Please let Grady be a good guy. Please, please, let him live up to it." And I'm like, "All right, guys, Polk County, come over here." And there's like 3 of them. Like, "Is your sheriff really that cool?" And they're like, "He's the best." And I'm like, "All right." I'm like, "Thank God." See, you know what I'm talking about? When the guys do the like, like, "Oh, that's bad."
Yeah.
I think the funniest press conference I ever saw with Grady Judd was a homeowner had shot an intruder multiple times.
Yes.
And somebody from Orlando, I think it was News 13, said, "But did the homeowner really need to shoot this guy 6 times?"
Yeah.
And Grady Judd's response was, "Actually, we prefer that you shoot him more times because it's less paperwork." and the reporter's jaw basically dropped.
Right.
But before we wrap this up, I want to get your thoughts on the current circumstances today, where we've got these, peaceful protests breaking out around the country. Obviously, the best thing to do is maintain a high level of awareness and avoid those places.
Yeah.
But in some instances, maybe it can't be done because of where somebody works, or somebody has an appointment, whatever the case may be. I'd like each of you to speak to the concept of mob psychology and the fact that you pull a pistol and you've got X amount of, say you've got a staccato, you're 20+1,
Yeah.
but there's 200 people rioting.
Yeah.
You're not going.
What do you do when it turns violent? Somebody starts hitting you over the head with a flagpole, like we just saw recently in
right.
Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Those sort of things, as well as the fact, what do you do with regards to retaining your weapon?
Yeah.
As you're getting mobbed? Stan, maybe you can roll with that one first.
You know, and I'll tell you what, you know, and even talk about that last scenario about, you know, rendering aid. You as a carrier should know your physical limitations, right? That's number one. You want to be careful. It's not like the movies, because you can shoot somebody several times, and you know, if they got something on board like drugs or whatever, they can fight through that, you know, and adrenaline, and they can still fight you when you're up there. So that's number one. So you know where your firearm is, and make sure that, you know, it's holstered well if you're going to do something like that. Number two, like it's just as important, and no one does it, but it's just as important to practicing retaining your firearm, right? You know, as it is shooting, because you know, if somebody just they can take it from you, that's a problem. I mean, there's a lot of people, and I know you point the gun like me, thousands and thousands of people, and the one that says nothing, raises his hand, and continues to walk toward you, and say, "Get back! I'm going to shoot you," and they keep coming. That's a problem. That means that they have confidence, and there's a possibility they can take that weapon from you. So I would get like a practice, you know, plastic weapon, and you know, whoever is in your family or you got friends, and you practice holding your weapon in, pulling it in tight, you know, keep that person back, right? Make sure they don't just snatch it from you. Again, distance, movement helps, all of those things, but you have to know what you, and make sure you have the right type of holsters and stuff too. You know, that member had sweats on and, you know, stuff like that. You know, I have a couple things. I've got a carry bag that, you know, I can get something real close so that it doesn't, I don't have a gun that's going to fall out. So you got to think about all those things, but weapon retention is so important.
Yeah.
Keith, if you don't mind, it's been quite a while since we've mentioned this on Survival Dispatch News, but you had an incident earlier in your career where somebody got a hold of your gun.
Yeah.
And maybe you could describe that and the changes to your personal SOPs after that point in time.
Yeah. So I got in a fight I was in plain clothes in a street narcotics team. And it was when methamphetamine first started making people have psychosis. And we really hadn't encountered it yet. And I got I told him, you know, put your hands behind your head. I'm going to search you. And I had him, you know, in the typical hands behind your head like this. That dude, turns out he had been in prison multiple times. He's on his third strike. And he got out of it to the point where his hands are now in front. And I'm holding like this. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, no. You know, and I was by myself.
Yeah.
And he went one movement, came in. I had a pancake holster. You know, this is like 1992, 3. Came in, pulled my SIG 226 right out, and he put his pinky right in that trigger.
Yeah.
You know, like,
wow.
you know, I remember thinking like, oh no, we're in trouble, right? So we fought over the gun, and it was a 5-minute fight. Which if you've ever fought for 5 minutes, and I went, I put out an officer needs help call on my radio, and it never went out until I'm in the dead zone.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why I got help was some citizen called 911, said, hey, there's an officer fighting over it with his gun, and there's nobody here. And then I got everybody. Right? Yeah. And so, you know, when you talk about like I'm one of the few cops that ever lost a gun, and I mean, it really screwed me up. I mean, like you know, I recently did EMDR for it, and EMDR, they do the little lights and try to put the memory back where it's supposed to be. And I remember, like, what's the first thing you think? And I'm like, I'm looking at the barrel of my own gun. You know, like, what are you thinking? I'm gonna die. You know, like, you know, it's horrible, right? But my recommendation is that you look at Twitter and you monitor because it's always just a couple of blocks. It's never the entire city, right? It could be like at most 10 blocks. Avoid those 10 blocks.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, call off your appointment or whatever, but I know like there's a lot of people ministering there.
Yeah.
And you're going to go anyways. If you're going to go, you're more likely to use less lethal than lethal.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say don't bring a gun. What I would do instead is like Palm or Saber. They make home defense pepper spray that is more like a fire extinguisher size. All you have to do is look at ice right now and see how effective pepper spray is.
Hmm.
There ain't nobody attacking them after they start spraying everybody. They're trying to get injunctions to make them stop, right? So if they start coming at you, like what's that one guy that Nate, the Jan Sixer that recently got stabbed over there,
that was
Minneapolis.
Jake Lang.
Jake Lang. If he just had pepper spray and just started doing the crowd, there ain't nobody trying to stab him.
Yeah.
They can't. You can't see, right? You need to avoid conflict. Period. So if you walk out of the building and it's there, I would always dress gray, man. Not like I wouldn't even wear this shirt with a Christian cross, right? I mean, though we want to proclaim our faith, you do want to be smart about it. Even Paul, like, changed his tactics so he can go minister another day, right? You want to change your tactics too. So dress gray, man. So you don't look like a businessman. You don't look like a protester. You don't look like a MAGA. You don't look like anybody, right? You just look like a dude walking down the street. Get out of the area. Go the opposite of where they're all going. Have your hand on that pepper spray, and if people try to grab you, start hosing them down, man. Do a rainbird sprinkler imitation, right? And just hose them down, and just keep saying back off, and like spray them. Keep saying back off. It works wonders.
Also, Chris, because you're talking about like someone's gonna hit you with a sign or something like
Yeah.
that. Right? So you guys got to remember that two things. You want to be like the strongest part of the baseball bat is at the end, like the swing. So if someone's actually, attacking you and you don't have time to draw and such, like, we always teach the officers to attack the weapon. So that means don't try to step away from it, because as they're coming in, you're going to catch the end of it. You actually go into it and you attack. And also, as you're doing so, one of your hands should be covering your head, so that if you do catch that blow, it hits your hand or your forearm and then your head, and then you at least protect the dome, because that's so important.
So Tony Blauer actually coined an adage in the 1990s, weaponize the flinch. So what's going through your mind in the seconds before the attack? And he trains people to recognize that when they flinch, like if I pick this up and threw it, you're probably going to go like this.
Yeah.
So to train people that once they go like this, to immediately go on the offense.
Yeah.
Which is similar to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Ken, your thoughts on somebody who was in Jake Lang's position, and where do they stand legally? Is there, there's going to be DAs out there that are backed by Soros. They're going to say, well, he put himself in harm's way.
Yeah, and I don't remember all the details of Jake's incident, right? But I would tell everybody, just like you've planned and trained for how you're going to defend yourself, and you've put all these tools in place, one of the tools you can have in place is the team that's going to help you later, right? Particularly if you're going to minister and you're putting yourself in these difficult situations, have a team. We provide that. There's other people that do. Even if you just build your own team because you know the right people, that's fine too. Have a team, because it's really difficult to navigate that. And they talked about you don't even remember what happened immediately. So just have a plan for that. And practice. Stan said earlier about practicing what you're going to say to the police. Like that's one of the things I always say when we talk to members. It's like, practice, write it down, and then practice it and get it in there, because in the heat of the moment, it's not going to work.
So I'm not messing around on my phone here. I have this condition called sometimers. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I forget.
Yes,
so I have to write everything down. So I've been taking some notes here while we've been talking, and something just popped in my mind. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, Keith, but you two as well. We carry Garmin InReach minis with us everywhere that we go.
Interesting.
And one of the things they have on them is an SOS button that goes through the Iridium satellite network down to a network operations center.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so typically the usage scenario would be you're off grid, you get injured, something happens, and now search and rescue technicians can find you and save you. But what about an urban environment? Keith and Stan in particular, is somebody's having a Garmin InReach mini, they're like Jake Lang, it reaches in his pocket, hits the SOS button.
Yeah, I can tell you, like Minneapolis PD would get that call, be like, yeah, man, it's an accidental because it's in this big group, or like, it's in this big group, we don't care. Like I can see them like dismissing it. I do highly recommend that you have some kind of comms that with a core group of people that can come help you, right? If something were to happen, right? And so I know when I go to a new city, like when I went to Texas to go teach, now I'm going to teach in front of like 700-800 people. Mm. And the first thing I do is that my contact there, I'm like, I need a core group of like 4 people, like that I can have in a secure group that I have on Signal. And I can talk to them immediately and get help if I need to. And I revert back to encrypted apps like Signal to communicate with the core team. The method you describe, I think, works really well when you're off-grid backpacking. I think in an urban environment, it's going to get immediately dismissed because the police department's going to be overwhelmed with what's going on down there. And I don't even know if that would even make it to the call log somewhere. You know what I mean? I think people underestimate what happens in like in a police communication center when there's a riot going on. They put a lot of calls into a master call. Yeah. It's just an open call. And they'll just add on fight at Pine and Elm. Yeah. No units to send. And that's it. Wow. And nobody will ever go there. Right. I mean, I remember I stopped this guy. He had a purse, a woman's purse, but he's a dude. And I was like, oh, heck yeah. So I hooked him up for DUI drugs so I can go look at the purse. And so I hooked him up for DUI drugs and grabbed the purse, and I looked inside, and woman out of Oakland. So I call her up and I'm like, I got your purse here. And she's like, thank God that guy robbed me at gunpoint. She's describing this gunpoint robbery. And I'm like, what does the guy look like? It's my guy. And I'm thinking like King of the Hill, baby. Right. Check me out. I'm good for a month now. Right. And I was like, all right, I'm going to have an officer come by and pick you up, and we're going to bring you out so you can look at this guy and tell me if it's him. And she's like, yeah, sounds great. I'm available. Let's make that happen. And I go, can you give me the report number? And she's, oh, Oakland PD hasn't been here yet. In my mind, I'm like, this just happened. I mean, like, how cool am I, right? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, when did this happen? Last week. Gunpoint robbery. And nobody has even been there for a solid week.
And he still has the purse.
You know what I mean?
That's great.
So some jurisdictions, like I've taught Minneapolis before. I think they're probably much like Oakland, where just not going to certain call. I mean, like they'll just ignore certain things. So I think I really think in like some of these instances, you really need to worry about like, yeah, call 911, do what you're supposed to do, but have this other side core group of people that can call to come. Yeah. Do whatever you mean, moral support, extraction, like whatever, just like what your gang member guy that assaulted your client. Yeah. Right. Yeah. They started calling their homies to come. Yeah. Hey, they just shot this guy. We do the same thing, man. Yeah.
Well said. So let's wrap up on this. Kent, number one reason somebody should join CCW Safe, then you, Stan, and then number one reason somebody should follow Christian Warrior training. So, Ken, one reason.
You need a team to support you after self-defense incident. The legal justice system is too complicated. Interaction with the police is too complicated. The resources that you need can get extremely impossible to produce. You need a team. That's the number one reason.
Great answer. Stan, how do you follow that up?
Really, because this is stronger. There's no one else in the industry that has a true boots on the ground team.
Yes.
We actually send homicide detectives out to you. Anyone else that's saying they got a critical response team, they're just calling to get you a lawyer. We go out there. In that instance that he was talking about, we know that Los Angeles is not a friendly place for guns. Right. Yeah. The shooting that he was in, we sent somebody out there within 24 hours. Two people actually. So we send them out there and they visit the scene. They get with the member. They do all those things. Now, we're not going under the crime scene tape, but if there is a self-defense incident and someone says, hi, I shot this guy and I ran away, I did it in self-defense, officers tend to get lazy. They don't immediately capture the videos and do all the things, right? And then you kind of go on this long list before, especially your charges are being brought. Yeah. They don't start looking at that stuff until later, closer to time for court. We send people out there, we capture these things for you to protect your case. Yeah. That's the most important thing that we do.
Well done, Stan.
Thank you.
Well done. Keith, why should people follow Christian Warrior Training?
Because you need Jesus.
I love
Amen
it.
to
All
that.
right.
I love
Now, and if you already have Jesus in your heart, then you probably
There you go.
that's gonna be a little small.
Make America pray again.
And if you already have Jesus in your life, then you probably want to be able to defend yourself. And I will teach you to do it in a Christian way. So you're going to obey man's law, you're going to obey God's law, and we'll take care of you. That's it.
All right. So quick reminders to our sponsors, carnivalt.com, 25-year shelf life, all American beef, chicken, and pork, no mRNA, no antihistamines, no antibiotics. Even the bags, the O2 absorbers are American, so they're 100% real Americans. TM, Randy Nance, our friends at Wasatch Wagyu. Make sure you use the code SD20 at wasatchwagyu.com.
KG20.
SD20.
KG20.
Hey, well,
If you love Jesus, KG20.
Wow.
so we're gonna break out the heavy guns here. Use code SD25, 25% off.
KG, like Keith Graves.
But Greg will be with us tomorrow. So will Keith. We're doing the Vets Tactical first annual Capolster Challenge at their booth here at SHOT Show. Back to Carnivalt for a second. If you buy a subscription, locks in your price for 12 months. Last year, 49% year over year increase in the price of beef. And if you don't sign up for a subscription, use the code EATMEAT. There is no KG code, by the way. Actually, there is, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. Code EATMEAT, all one word, gets you 10% off. I don't know if you all caught this or not tonight. We don't have all of our regular studio equipment, but we do have our voice modulation technology with us tonight. And I'm sure you all have noticed already that Stan is actually, that's just an alias of his. It's Mike Tyson. we changed his voice to disguise it, but if you pause and zoom in, you'll see it's Mike Tyson.
Wow.
You got to jack your teeth up a little bit.
It's a Mike Tyson smile the whole 9 yards. But anyway, Khalid will be back the next 3 nights at the usual time. Between now and then, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless our law enforcement. God bless our troops. And God bless America.
Amen.
Amen.
You're good. One more.
We absolutely